Welcome to the Pillow Fright podcast. I'm Alyssa.
I'm Kay.
And I'm Emma.
And today we are getting into Late Night with the Devil.
This is a film that is brought out by Shudder and AMC. It is a limited run as of the time of filming this weekend, March 22nd. And it will be on Shudder April 19th.
And that is Late Night with the Devil. Woo!
Applause.
I don't remember what the music was, but I think this was a great first movie to watch because I honestly didn't know it was in theaters until we talked about it, which I appreciate that it was. And that when it first, when that Shudder logo came on the screen, I was like, that feels so weird.
You're like Shudder theatrical style.
But I know, seeing Shudder outside of my home, I was like,
was so strange.
Oh my god.
And I haven't gone to the theaters much at all lately. So for me, I felt not proud in I'm so proud to be here, but in a way where it's I'm so thankful that I can be here and be comfortable and support, because when we got the tickets, we were the only ones in the theater. And then when we got there, the theater was pretty full. And it made me so happy to know that enough people knew about it to go see it.
Especially we saw it Sunday at noon.
It was Sunday at noon.
People are still drinking at brunch and
right.
we're horror.
Late Night with the Devil.
And we were at an AMC theater, so that does track that they were doing this limited release there. And I've subscribed to Shudder since before AMC was involved. I subscribed so long ago that I won tickets through them for subscribing to Marilyn Manson and Rob Zombie. That's how long ago.
I love OG Shudder. Shudder's been awesome.
It's always had, I will say, their curation on their app has always been the absolute best
really
for finding movies. And sadly, now I subscribe to it to AMC, and I will say, that's actually my biggest disappointment is their, the format and curation on their app is awful now that it's through Prime. That was my mistake. If you have it just the Shudder app, it's amazing. Through Prime, it's just not as good. I as soon as Walking Dead's done, I'll cancel. But it's really great to see something that was all horror for horror fans, and that did, it started out just horror movies, and then they started kind of funding or producing movies to have the Shudder name, and now it just feels.
And they do shows, originals.
Oh yes, they do some, or they've picked up originals that others have let go of. That maybe didn't start on Shudder, but
they've
moved
definitely
to Shudder.
saved some movies.
Yes, they've saved some stuff that the audiences loved and would have been gone.
And
The Last Drive-In's an example of something bringing back that we
And
never
it's
thought was
huge.
going to be the thing.
That's their biggest show, I think.
That
that or Dragula, which they also saved.
They did, yes.
And I gotta send a big shout out to my boy Sam Zimmerman, who I started at Fangoria with. Oh my god, 15 years ago.
Oh, wow.
As I think he did he was the internet editor, and then he had gone to Shock T Drop when Ryan Turek had moved to Blumhouse.
Okay.
And then he got this gig at Shudder. And I don't know if that was the origin of Shudder, but it's definitely the first time I heard of it. And all of a sudden he's out here programming some of the best stuff in the genre.
Awesome.
So good on him.
As horror fans, it's so good to see. Like you said, it was so good to see that label on a screen. Even before the actual movie started, just seeing and hearing the dun dun.
I was like, whoa!
As a Shudder director, I was like,
it made
so
me cozy.
theatrical.
Yeah!
And just to see so many people there, and it wasn't even we were all friends that we knew. It was I didn't recognize
Strangers,
anyone.
yeah.
And just to know that they knew enough to go and loved enough to go to a matinee on a Sunday, like you said. They probably partied all night, but they're like, no, I want to watch this movie in theaters.
Yeah.
So I think when we get into it, we're gonna discuss non-spoilers a little bit because
non-spoiler
we're not
first.
a fan of spoilers here.
No, I don't even, for the most part, don't even watch trailers unless it's for, so I didn't see a trailer for this movie before we watched it.
Right. Yeah, I didn't know anything about this
I
movie.
did see the art online that they posted, which I thought was great. Loved the images that they were using to promote it.
Yeah, I love those.
The poster with his head flaming.
I
was like, I'm so in. If I think if a movie's gonna be good, I 100% won't watch the trailer because I don't want to see a single thing before I'm watching the movie.
I mean, I'm sort of the opposite because I really love trailers. I love the art of trailers, but I do think that we're in this weird age where production companies aren't trusting that their people are going to go see their movies, so they're spoiling everything. They're like, look, we've got this, we've got that, we've got that. I'm like, dude, just setting the atmosphere is getting fill
Those are
seats.
so much more
Like,
effective.
Trust that people are gonna show up.
Yes.
I'm talking to you, Blumhouse.
Well, like, specifically, I remember I went to see, this was a little while ago. I was gonna wait till, what's the movie that was with the sky? Jordan
Nope.
Us? No,
Nope.
no.
Yeah.
I was gonna wait till Nope came out on streaming, and then someone's like, you have to see it on a big screen.
Yeah.
It's made for that, and I was like, because I hadn't watched trailers, I didn't know.
Yeah.
So I was like, yes, okay. So I went, and I remember there being 30 minutes of trailers, 2 of which were for Smile. And two separate, not the same trailer, 2 separate trailer cuts for Smile, and the best jump scare of the whole movie. I mean, it's been out for a while.
yeah,
It was in the trailer. It's the car. It's the car, and her head
you
flips
just know
down.
what's gonna happen.
Yeah.
And yeah, when I finally saw the movie, which frankly, if I hadn't seen the whole movie in the trailer, because between the 2 trailers, I literally think I saw the entire movie. I would have that jump scare would have killed me. I think I would have screamed when I saw it. But I didn't think it was a bad movie. But because I'd seen so much of it, I was already kind of like, meh.
Yep.
But now a trailer that we saw, which was a Shudder film, the one in the woods. And I can't remember what
Before
the name
the
of it was.
movie?
Yeah, the trailer that we just saw. And it's a Shudder movie.
The,
and it-
with the guy walking.
all you see is a killer walking in the,
the
woods.
POV of the killer.
Oh, I can't
But right
believe that
behind the
messed
killer's
up.
head.
Yeah.
Well, because at first I was like, wait, we're doing something with Friday the 13th?
That's what I thought too.
Because it's in the woods, it's a killer
yeah,
in the woods.
Say
It's
anything.
definitely
It's
like
just- yeah.
I'm very curious about that movie because it definitely looks like it's killer POV through and through.
Right.
So how are you going to make that interesting for an hour and a half?
I mean,
very,
Maniac,
very,
the remake, kind of did
yeah, that was like full first person though. This is
That's-
like almost
yeah.
like video game style.
That's true.
It's
Yeah.
like
That's true.
right behind him. So we'll see.
Yeah.
That does look interesting.
That was really
But I
cool.
thought it did, for as far as like ambiance, like
Yeah,
you mentioned, that
absolutely.
trailer had great. It stuck with it. It was in it, and I left being like, I want to know more about this movie.
Yeah.
I didn't, and it showed a F ton of kills, like so many. But
They didn't explain anything.
and the way that they did it
Yeah.
though, I'm like, there's gonna be more kills. I was like, that's just a taste. There's gonna be a ton of blood.
I want to know who this guy is.
Yeah, that is what I want in a trailer. Is I want to be like, oh crap, I want to know more about this. Versus, I don't want the story. I want the whole thing.
Have you seen the trailer for? I saw the TV Glow. I think it's called. It's an A24 movie.
No, but because I won't watch that trailer. But I
It
saw
looks
stills.
so cool.
Okay.
It looks so. It was a really well cut trailer, and I was just like, oh, I want to see that.
And there are some, like, I have a friend who literally his job, like one of my best friends from high school, his job is at a trailer cutting house. So I'm not denouncing trailers in any way
No,
because, like you said,
we
it's
know a
not.
lot of people who work
there,
on-
and there's
yeah.
some people who are. It is literally an art, but
It
it's
really
production
is.
companies that don't have faith in their audience, and which especially in horror is almost more disappointing because it's like, but we love the genre if it's god awful, we are still gonna watch it and
We
we're
are
turning it
seeing
into a
it
drinking game.
better.
Yeah, we're gonna see it with friends. We're gonna see it
Yeah.
in a group setting and laugh hysterically. Like Evil Dead became like it's a household name. It's a cult phenomenon, and that movie is not like a shot-for-shot terrifying movie, and it wasn't like I was introduced to it as this movie is hilarious and you're gonna love it. And I watched the TV show. I am into the franchise. I saw the Evil Dead exhibit and like spent like 2
not the
hours in
funny
there.
one.
But like that's no matter what, horror fans love horror, and that's why I love being part of this community. Like we love it. We love it through and through.
Right.
So when production companies and big studios just don't have it's like, but how do you not get that? Like, we're gonna see the movie. We're gonna go. And like, if it's on streaming, I'm gonna watch it, and it's gonna be on my TV while I'm cleaning at 10 a.m. or late, or like, sitting down with popcorn at 7 p.m. I'm gonna watch the movie.
They just, as long as they just withhold the jump scare, just any jump scare, any big moment that could just make us have a heart attack, just don't show it. Don't show it.
Yeah.
That's all we ask. So, going into Late Night with the Devil, I think we're going to discuss some non-spoilers for anybody who hasn't seen it yet. And then we'll go into the spoilers, but we'll give you a heads up because nobody likes a spoiler.
No spoilers. We're not that kind of people. The film we're talking about this evening is Late Night with the Devil, that we all had the pleasure of seeing last night. As of the recording date of this podcast, the film was in theaters with AMC for a very limited run, the weekend of March 22nd. Now, the film Late Night with the Devil, according to IMDb, a live television broadcast in 1977 goes horribly wrong, unleashing evil into the nation's living rooms.
The theremin.
The theremin.
Theremin plays a part, but that's not a spoiler.
No, it does steal the show a
It kinda
little
does,
bit.
though.
The
I love the
theremin is
theremin.
great.
But-
I want to play on one. I want to touch it.
So bad. Well, I want to not touch it.
No, but like I want to touch it because you can't touch it. But like,
yeah.
but then like not touch it.
Gus.
I just want to play it.
Gus and his theremin.
Two directors, Cameron and Colin Carnes. They also wrote it, the
Yes.
film, which is great.
And edited it, I believe.
What else have they done? Is there?
There's a couple. There was well, hold on. We looked them up.
Yeah.
They had 4 or 5 films when I looked yesterday. Sadly, I have not heard of any of them.
I did see that one of them is on Prime. So let me pull this up. 100 Bloody Acres is on Prime.
Okay.
That's an Australian horror film from 2012. They also are known for Scare Campaign in 2016.
And it's interesting because when we saw this movie, there's like I believe 9 production companies.
So many production companies.
But isn't it crazy that it takes 9 studios to fund
bananas.
an original idea in 2024?
That is
Yes.
bananas. I've never seen that before. That was the first time I ever saw that.
And that's with talent like David Dastmalchian attached.
Yeah.
He's worked with the biggest names, not just in horror, like
Just in general.
the film world.
Yeah, like Oscar-winning directors.
Yeah. John Cena, come on.
Oh.
He's the only one who met. No, I'm just kidding.
Well, he was at the Oscars. All of him.
Okay.
Before we get into this movie, because there was a bit of an internet kerfuffle over a few slides, some like intermittent still shots they used AI, and apparently these shots were not in the South by Southwest cut.
Oh, really?
Yes. So there were some reviewers, I think, were the ones that were the most upset as they had reviewed it without them, and then they were in. So maybe let's just take a quick little side journey and maybe discuss our thoughts on AI and maybe this project in particular.
Well, it is hard to talk about a film that, for the most part, unless you were at South by Southwest, you didn't see this movie, except for this limited run, and it's going to be on Shudder April 19th. So, but what is crazy, like you bring up, is that I knew more about the AI use in the film than I knew about the film, because I'm already hearing all about it's all over TikTok, it's all over Twitter, it's all over.
I didn't hear anything about that. So this is interesting to me.
It's and especially with the writer strike and the actor strike and everything, that just like very fresh, very raw for a lot of creatives. And you have so many large corporations that are instantly going to AI over everyone else. And I think that when you see it in not just a movie, but an independent feature, people take notice, and then it's more open to critique.
And it's hard because the shots that were there, as I hire a lot of artists in my job, and I know specifically there are many artists in the independent space who can do that style of art and are very affordable. So it is kind of a bummer, but then also seeing these 9, film studios, maybe they just didn't have any more money or time.
What?
Well, actually,
was it? Is it a spoiler? Can we
No,
talk about
it's
it right now?
like
It's not a spoiler.
It's like
it's the commercial. It's the cut to commercial or coming back from commercial
with like the Halloween, like the retro Halloween art.
They did 3.
Okay, yeah.
The 2 that I think were the most notable were, it was a dancing skeleton one, and then one where it's an owl and a TV set, a retro TV set. And like for me, the retro TV set, the buttons, that was the dead giveaway. The buttons were not the same space. And also one problem I have with AI art is that it almost looks like it's been run through Facetune too many times, and it's got this blur that
it's a very glossy look.
Yes, which is a direct it's a very jarring visual in comparison to a 1977 TV broadcast where like it's blurry because of grainy versus blurry because it literally looks like someone went over with a blur tool.
See, I didn't even notice it, and I think it's because I had my eye patch on halfway through. I had a corneal abrasion while watching this, so my eye was closed the whole time. So that's probably why I didn't notice it. But that's so interesting. Wow.
It's a shame.
That is, yeah. Oh, man.
But it's also a shame that it's overshadowing a really well done independent movie.
Yeah.
Where crews built sets and costumers killed it and creating this
the
70s
atmosphere
aesthetic.
and the set, and that's something that I think that was my favorite part of this whole film was that and as I mentioned, like, I love 70s aesthetic. I love occult, 70s occult, satanic panic. I love all of that. And they did so well when they did, like, the intro, when they did the intro of this, just the documentary style of how they just did all the clips together and just the lighting, the coloring, the just costuming, everything was just so great. And that was my favorite part of the whole film.
Well, I think it's like going on, you saw it a lot on Twitter, and so people are talking about how like the cutting corners aspect of, like, they did so much with, like you said, the costuming, the set, the practical effects, the special effects. I can read some of the things that I thought were interesting from Twitter. Any film with 8 studio logos at the start and funding from Abu Dhabi can afford to pay artists and any directors using this AI should feel embarrassed. So this is someone else's stuff. This is not necessarily our take, but I'm reading the quote.
I don't disagree with that.
I don't
though.
disagree.
It's all different opinion because it's it's a topic that is cause for many different opinions.
Yeah, we talked about how so many studio logos in the beginning. That is money, and yes, I understand money runs out. Anyone who has made a film, be it short or feature or done any type of horror project, knows how quickly money can run out.
Absolutely.
Right.
But as someone like you've talked about, where you've hired artists, and like I've hired artists when I was streaming, you can go on Fiverr and you can pay someone money. And I think one of the most interesting for me was an artist, and I'm gonna say her because it was Summer Rae. That's what she goes on Twitter, X, whatever. She said, it's replying to something else, but it's I went ahead and recreated it. This could have been a dream job for an artist like me. And I 100% do want to show this because, like,
we can insert it too,
retro,
because that's
it's cute. It tracks, it matches.
That is beautiful.
But this is, when I think of retro art, I do think of this. It looks like it was hand-drawn by someone.
Yeah, it does.
And it reminds me of those, like, 70s decorations with, like, the paper pop-ups.
That's that vibe, like, what we all think of, like, classic Halloween and just Halloween specials on TV. I love that. That's great.
And as creatives ourselves, like, how do you, like, when I read that, I felt that. That could have been a dream job.
Yeah.
And we've all felt that, not just once, many times.
Yeah.
We've all felt that.
But, and that's the thing with AI. It could be a tool, and I could see it being something, because, like, I'm not anti-tech. I'm not someone who's, like, scared of growth, but
it's just how
I also, like, I think that the ethics of it right now, and as far as where they're sourcing their imagery from that they're using and, like, regurgitating new stuff, like, I don't think that they've asked permission from these artists who are losing jobs. So I don't feel like it's artificial intelligence. I feel like it's copyright infringement.
See, that's the line that is the problem.
But unfortunately, maybe by the time this hits Shudder, they'll have swapped it out for some other graphics.
Which I actually think is the best response to that. Yeah. I do think that they should not necessarily, like, they should hire artists to create that, swap out the graphics before it gets its full streaming release, especially if it wasn't in the South by Southwest cut. And this is something that they added in. There is something from the directors. This is from Variety. In conjunction with our amazing graphics and production design team, all of whom worked tirelessly to give this film the 70s aesthetic we'd always imagined, we experimented with AI for 3 still images, which we edited further and ultimately appear as very brief interstitials in the film. I hope I said that word right. But I will say where I think they went wrong. We experimented with AI for 3 still images, and that they get the AI and then we edited further, and it should be the opposite.
Yeah.
It should be, we had someone come up with art and maybe we used AI to clean it up. Like we just discussed we use special effects and then we use visual effects to enhance.
And there are ways to incorporate it. There's a use for it.
And that's what I'm saying, like as a tool. Like,
yes.
Right.
As a photographer, like there's in Photoshop there are tools, there are a drop down of filters that do different things to help.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
But when it's taking over the entire when something else is making the art and it's not you, then that feels pretty hollow to me. When
you're replacing the creative with a robot instead of letting the robot help the creative. Because when we talked about how robots were going to take, that's like something that's always brought up.
That's my opinion, by the way.
That's always
Skynet
brought up.
is real, and this is Skynet.
I'll
never not say that.
The robots are supposed to help us, not hinder.
It's fine.
This, by the way, disclaimer, this is all just our opinions. If anybody differs, that's fine. We all have opinions. Opinions are beautiful.
And some of the opinions on Twitter do get a little heated on this. But I think that, like we said, if this is something that is fixed, I think that would feel amazing. Maybe we are a little bit more raw and judgmental. Like, we expect this from big studios. It's just a little bit more of like a little stab when it comes from a smaller, because we want everyone to thrive. And I hope that, and I feel like they probably did too. My first instance is going to be that it's from timing.
Agreed.
That's
time and
what I think
money.
too. That's exactly what I think. And it's just it hits a personal chord, especially for people like us, I think, who know people who can be in that position and who are so talented, and we know these people
in an industry that's struggling.
It hits personally, yes. And I know that people who may not be in the industry, who may not know artists, may see it differently, and that's fine. Like it is what it is. But when it hits so close to home, it's just, when something hits close to home, it hits differently, and it's harder to not take personally.
Before we move on from this, I think the general consensus that I could take away from it is AI is going to be a bigger topic that our industry is going to keep continuing to talk about, and figuring out where it fits as a tool for us moving forward. Mm-hmm. And I think these are conversations that we should keep having.
Oh yeah.
And I think that with any new technology, like, people hated CG when it came around.
That's true.
It's true. And then it just found its place.
Exactly. Mm-hmm. So maybe AI will, maybe
I think it will,
maybe it won't be accepted, and maybe we'll move away from it. But I think it's a conversation that we should keep having, that people should be open to keep talking about and fine-tuning a tool that we could use in the future. But as of right now, I just don't think it's there yet. I don't even think it looks good yet.
It really doesn't. I think that's the biggest.
And I think
a bigger issue is like, but if a human can do it better, please let a human do it. But I do agree with you, is that I also think, like, if we stop talking about it, then they're gonna continue to shortchange artists, and as artists, we should always be standing up for other artists.
Yeah,
and
always.
Because especially in the age where we're seeing a lot of, and this has always been like an issue of independent versus big picture, but I think that a lot of the studios that we have grown to love, because they're big studios that still care about the little guy and still care about giving like smaller artists a chance, we want to make sure that they think about like the whole picture too.
Yeah.
Agreed.
And when people bring this up, there's no way they don't see it.
Yeah.
Like,
now that you're mentioning it, I'm thinking back, and I can tell now. It's it's unfortunate, but you're right. It is a topic that we absolutely need to keep talking about.
And we're back.
One more time.
Thank you for taking that brief commercial break.
Brief in theme with the movie we were talking about. But yeah, in general, just the general spoiler-free opinions. I I really dug it for what it was. I really liked the talk show format, because you don't see that often, especially in real time, because it was, for the most part, in real time once it was a talk show. And I love how on commercial breaks they did have like the commercial breaks, and then they had like the standbys. Was it standby? Like just when
the
like
audience
BTS.
warm up.
Yeah,
It's all with if the cameras
Right.
are rolling the whole time, we're catching more footage.
Right. And then behind, when they weren't on camera, they switched to black and white, and that was kind of like the behind the scenes sort of like how
Yeah,
they did that, right?
when it wasn't what was not being broadcast.
No, what was
switched
on
to black and
stage.
white.
Yeah,
so
the
you
back-
can
yeah,
see the
exactly.
difference between what the audience at home was supposedly seeing and what you as
Yeah.
the viewer were
Right.
privy to.
And I just really quick, I loved the guy who played Gus,
Reese Aturi.
I
Aturi?
looked up his IMDb. He only has 2 credits, and this was one of them, and the other one was a short, which I
for him.
loved. And he was so adorable. He was perfect for that role. He was the announcer, the host, the kind of who's
The sidekick.
the sidekick. I always think of Bob Eubanks. Is that his name from Jim and Wait? And I'm Ed Hall. No, wait, no. Ignore me. I'm just thinking of all
It's like
the
Andy
sidekicks.
Richter to
Yeah,
Conan.
Yeah,
Right,
everybody
He
every
was
talk show host
charming.
has their guy.
I really liked him.
Yeah.
You know?
I think he really and like doing the audience like warm-ups or like keeping them warm, I guess, during
Yeah.
commercial breaks and like talking to people, like the things you would actually see if you've ever been in the audience or on one of those talk show sets. They kept that kept it very real, which I liked.
Yeah.
So we're doing a whole month of found footage production, TV production movies, and this is the first one. But I'm really excited for the two of you to get into some of the deeper cuts that I've personally seen,
I've
but
never seen.
that are bigger. Like, this movie is very much inspired by a lot of movies that already exist within this sub genre. It's interesting that this movie, while it's very much, it has moments of inspiration from these past movies, also within reading about it, that it's actually inspired by, like, you know, a real episode of a real late night show, and every single guest that they show is based off like a real life person. I don't want to like get into that too much because I don't want to spoil it for people who haven't seen the movie yet.
Well, you can say like the episode of the show you said was inspired by the Don Lane show in 1975.
Yeah.
So that's not, because they open it up where they're talking a lot about Jack Delroy, and they're talking about who
That's
he
David
is.
Dastmalchian's character.
Yes. So talking about as a host, who he is, what he's been through. It's almost like you're watching one of those where they came from, who they are, episodes of like People and TV Guide on the show.
Behind the music type.
Yes,
kind of
that
behind
felt
the
like
music,
behind the
right.
music. They open the film where they're talking about what's going on in the time. Like, I like how they set it up, which is always difficult with found footage. As if you've made found footage, you watch found footage, setting up the world outside of what you're watching is difficult. Like, Blair Witch does it with talking about, like, we found this footage in this time and it is real and these kids disappeared. Another found footage that I love that is definitely, at least the first one is a cult classic, is Grave Encounters. Where they talk about, I'm a production, like, guy is this guy and it's, I sent these people out here and, they never came back, like, but here's some footage and this is what we got.
Watch it anyway.
Yeah, I mean, I
love
love the sleazy production agent dude, which is, who is in this movie? Leo Fisk.
Leo Fisk.
So it's kind of cool to have, like, I was like, it's that guy, because every movie's got to have that
They
guy.
gotta have that, especially in the
it's like,
second
we're
production
gonna get
guy.
it done.
Yeah,
Pulls
the
out the
money
cigarette.
guy.
Like, is he really scummy? He's just trying to get it made.
That's
He's just trying to keep his
that's
job.
Every you need that guy, because that guy gets done. And
I am the Leo Fisk of this podcast.
yes, 100%.
You gotta get the sunglasses.
100%.
Always pull out a cigarette.
Like the sunglasses and some Coke.
Always do this.
But yeah, the like setting that world is difficult no matter what you do, because you want it's that, like, I need to keep the audience in the moment of found footage, but I need to set up the world that I won't necessarily be able to do through a story, like a flashback or like anything like that. So the way that they did it, I thought worked out. It worked well.
It did. It's a little long in my opinion. Like, you know, as a filmmaker, you always want to show, not tell, but it's really hard to do that with something that's found footage because, as you're saying, you can't really use flashbacks. Though, to be honest, I don't think that this movie plays by all the found footage rules. I think it kind of makes its own.
Yes.
And you just got to be along for the ride for that. So, I mean, I think maybe some people will be sticklers for that. Like, you know, all the footage is supposed to be like BTS. Like, would that really have been filmed? Would it have been shot like that?
Just have to suspend disbelief.
But
yes,
you know, it's an interesting movie. I wouldn't skip it. If, you know, it's on Shudder. Y'all can watch it for free.
And that's the thing. And I wonder what opinions would be like too if we just watched it in our living room, you know, at night before bed, because it was interesting watching something like that, because I feel like obviously every movie is made like to be on the big screen. That's just kind of, I feel like movies are made for the most part.
I won't say every movie.
Not
I
every,
think
but
that changed within the last 4 years specifically.
But for the most part, you know, with the goal in mind to be like that, and this is the rare case where I feel like I would have been a little more involved if I was in my living room. Like, it would have affected me a little bit more.
It is you're in your living room. It's supposed to be a television show that's broadcast into your living room. It's the late night show.
Right. So on a television
it's the show that your
set,
parents wouldn't let you stay up for.
It would be more exciting, which is a rare case. Usually it's the opposite. But I would have loved if that was my first time. That being said, I will always go back to saying I'm really glad that this did get a limited release, because it was so cool seeing so many people show up for this.
I will say, and this is a critique to AMC, not the movie itself, but when the movie had commercial breaks, people in the theater acted like it was a real commercial break and kind of started talking, and I was like leaning over like, shut up, like strangers, because I'm like,
100% she did that.
This is like,
I didn't hear that.
Really, like, this is not a real commercial, y'all. This is like part of the movie.
That's so funny.
Which was interesting, but I think you're right. I think I would have actually really appreciated watching this at
opinions
home.
might have been a little
Which
bit,
I'm gonna do.
right.
I'm gonna watch it.
Same.
April 19th,
Same.
it releases on Shudder. I'm gonna watch it.
I feel like it's gonna be great. Like, just a whole different experience.
I'm gonna
when you
have
watch it on your
popcorn.
TV.
I'm gonna be in my pajamas. I'm
Yeah.
gonna be cuddling my dog on the couch, and I'm gonna watch this movie. And I'm gonna watch it at night. Like,
you have to.
You know, the movie theater blocks out the light, but like, you're right. It's late night with the devil. I'm gonna watch it late night, and I'm excited
with the
for
devil.
that. I mean, I'll invite him. I don't know if he's gonna show up.
He'll show.
So
time.
something else before we get to spoilers that I really wanted to discuss is this is set in the late 70s when like satanic panic was just becoming a thing, and also there were like competitions in late night to like up the ante. But I still feel like this kind of falls with the trope of like satanic panic horror movies, where it's actually promoting that like Reagan era satanic panic versus like setting any other precedent. Does that make sense? Like, it still be like Satan is bad, you know, be scared of the devil, be scared of, you know. And so I'm interested in seeing a movie do the reverse of that, because pretty much everything within that genre still does that, you know, like House of the Devil, the devil's still the bad guy. Like, what does it look like if we flip that? Right. And I would love to see that in cinema.
Just that point of view,
yeah, just like what if any other source? What if it's, you know, what if it's the Christians?
That aspect of like Catholicism being the evil versus every time you think of, if you think of like exorcism movies, or just
like
this
the propaganda of Satan being the bad guy. Like, I'm just like, this definitely just still falls into the trap of, you know, like occult, bad, Satan bad, which is fine, but it's also just furthering, you know, this propaganda that's at the base of it's Christian.
I'm wondering if it was just because it was in that time, like it was very faithful to the time period. But I understand what you're saying.
It's still, you know, there was room to deviate, and I'm not saying that's a bad thing. It's just a choice.
Well,
and I'm just saying, as a
room
viewer,
for you,
to like go make your
there's room for all of you as
filmmakers. I'm just, I mean, y'all need to see Immaculate.
I'm excited.
I'm very excited.
I really want to see that.
That was pretty badass.
Well, and it's good to see. I mean, I love watching exorcism movies and things like that, and that does have, like you said, but I also like to think of like which is bad, and now when we see movies about witchcraft, they're the heroes.
Yeah.
It's you think
Which I'm
of
very
like
thankful for.
right,
I like that. I
but like
that.
so I think that tide does turn
Yeah.
with movies. So like you said, we could start seeing where these satanic cults maybe aren't the villains. That time is probably coming because
Right.
if we
Just seeing another point of view.
Yeah.
It's just it's
the
nice.
killer's always bad, but now we start to see movies where we're empathizing with the killer.
Exactly.
And so maybe that's the next big thing. Maybe that's going to be the next thing in horror is we can start seeing more things that, because I'm not the only person that has religious trauma. So
No, you're not.
so maybe that is going to be we can look for that theme.
Two Italian Catholics right here. It was like former.
You know,
We'll start to see it because horror is made by people's experiences and
Which I
stories
love.
that we want to tell in a way. So hopefully that's a story that's out there.
Well, now do you think we should get into the spoiler
Yes.
section?
Yeah.
All right. If you
Because you've been dying to talk about it.
I know we've spent enough time. If you have not already, shut everything off. Shut it now because we're going to spoil it. Watch the movie April
And then
19th
come back.
on Shudder. Well, duh. Jeez.
As some things that we talked about is it's a late night show. He's been a radio show host, which I think was like really brief, but I actually liked that they brought that up.
He was a regional radio
Chicago
host.
area, which I like because he's from
Chicago.
Yeah, it was like
Go! Jack Delroy, that's David Dastmalchian's character. He is a regional host that's made it up to the big times, and he's competing. His show is opposite Carson, and he's never taken first place.
And they used a real, they put that even, Carson is not a fictional
Yeah.
talk
Right.
show.
Right.
They brought this real,
And,
that real life.
it's like he was neck and neck for a long time, and then unfortunately his wife got sick with cancer and passed away. And then his ratings began to fall and fall and fall.
And he took like a month off, they said, or
Yeah.
he took some time
And
off.
They
and then-
also made it apparent that he was part of a men's club, which was potentially a cult.
In the redwoods of
they
California.
showed right. There was like
With an owl.
The owl was like
Yeah.
the mascot.
And
of the-
Yes.
and the
Right.
owl also was Night Owls was the name of the show.
Yeah.
So that extra tie-in was very important
Yes.
because it's like, they not gloss over it, they bring it up, but they don't explicitly say that he got the show because of them, but then the show is Night Owls and the actual which also, being a nerd, I'm like,
Very stage fright.
Stage fright.
yeah.
If you go into
Stage fright.
away from horror into comic books,
I thought
the Court of Owls is a huge Batman thing where it is the rich people who secretly run Gotham are called the Court of Owls.
Oh yeah.
And so having this rich group that's an owl, I was like, okay, well maybe I thought in the theater I was like, nerds, you nerd.
You're nerd.
But also because David Dastmalchian is in the DC universe, is where you got to start with Dark Knight.
yeah.
So I thought that was an interesting, maybe not a specific tie-in that they had, but for me, I was like,
Yeah.
oh hey,
I love that.
let's bring it back.
For what I read, the filmmakers had this project that they were working on, and then they read in Fangoria that David was trying to be a host, or he has a character that he does. He was talking about how he loved hosting and so they were like, oh well, maybe we should reach out to this guy, and they showed him this pitch deck that looked like a vintage TV guide, and
That's so cute.
yeah,
really
they
cool.
loved it, and he loved it, and the rest is history. They got this movie made, which is super cool. That's such an
that's really
exciting
cool.
thing, to get an actor of David's level excited about, your small independent movie. Yeah. But so yeah, he plays this, this guy who's been through this very traumatic thing with his wife, and he's also on this hunt for ratings. And so he puts together this Halloween episode that's supposed to end in an exorcism, or a talking with the devil inside
Not
of
an interview with a demon that's
Yes,
inside a
The
little girl.
demon was,
Yeah.
and that's something that they showed in the package before the episode was Abraxas, the cult that worshipped Abraxas, and the house.
Is that a real demon, by the way?
I think it is.
Well, that little tie-in where they were like,
Yeah.
abracadabra comes from Abraxas, I was like, wait,
It's
what?
I
Yeah.
was like, who the f*** is Abraxas. Like,
yeah. Why doesn't he get more movies? All right. Good for you, Abraxas.
The electric demon. He's when we get there, we'll get there because I.
But so, and like his first guest is this guy named Christo.
Christou.
He's also based off a real life medium. But it was interesting. He does sort of that. Was it cold reading?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Like John Edwards. If you've ever seen, if you're old enough to remember that show in the 90s.
John Edwards.
But it's like, this guy, he's like cold reading the audience. And, then he like is getting all of them wrong and he's looking like a fucking fool. And then like there's some people in the front, like a mother and daughter, and he gets it right. And then, he gets a real, like, because obviously that one feels set up too. Like
Which they bring up, that they're like, yeah. It's a setup. This nice lady, and then she came out later, and she was asking us a lot of questions, which, it's how they do it. Like, I did one, I was at the Magic Castle here in LA, and they had us fill out these little questionnaires, but it's a room of like 30 people, and then he's putting together, he put together a bracelet, like with those little block letters that you made as kids, with the beads, and it was the name of my childhood dog. And he put it as a collar on a dog stuffed animal that did not look like my dog, but it still had me sobbing. And in my head, I know, I'm like looking around, there's gotta be cameras, they're watching people write it, they just pick somebody.
Yeah.
You're still, you hold on to the paper, but like, there's a gimmick.
It's like the entire Del Toro movie, Nightmare Alley, is like all based off that. Yeah. And it's interesting. It's it's for entertainment, cool, but for when people really believe that like, you're kind of scary.
I think that there is that. It's not just about like, do you really believe it, but in that moment where you're watching this mom and a mom and sister who lost their child/brother to suicide, and before it comes out that they're like, they asked, and they're literally sitting there feeling this sense of relief that he's in a better place. He's okay. He was asking about his stuffed animal, and he knows that his stuffed animal's okay, and how
choked up.
Yeah, I did too.
They felt like, and but yes, it's for ratings, it's for money, but at the same time, if it makes someone feel better,
that's where I'm at with it too, because I'm an intuitive human. But there's a difference between, a John Edwards and somebody who's just an intuitive human, whatever. But, I think that there are people out there who genuinely do want to help, and they realize that even if I think that sometimes it's like the placebo effect sometimes too. Like, even if it's not 100%, like, they're not seeing this 100%, but if they help somebody really find closure within themselves, like, that's helping. Right. And I had empathy for that character. I actually really did.
That was a huge thing that they that someone that is a psychic and communicates with the dead is on these TV shows back in the day. Like, that was everywhere. Right. And people needed that. It was even, you think about way earlier, 1900s, where people would go to like stage productions, and they're going to go sit in a theater and have that happen. And then the innovation that they did to like talk to ghosts ended up being huge things that like made filmmaking. Right. So, as much as it's like, it's fake or that, but like, no matter what, it's innovative, it's entertaining, and it's also catharsis. It is. Like, let's keep it going. You know what? Talk to the ghosts. I love it.
But then we find out that he actually is really sensitive, right?
Yeah.
Yes.
So that's the thing. Like, that's why I had empathy for him. I felt so bad for him.
Pulled a full-on Reagan.
I'm over that. I mean, for
multiple
reasons. But aside from personal reasons, I'm just kind of over that. Like, the whole spewing demonic thing. But, I guess that's what would happen. Who knows? Anyway.
But when he channels Jack's late wife, and he calls her Minnie, which is a secret nickname, and like, it gets him. But something that I thought that was interesting, I don't know if you guys noticed this, but a lot of times in reflections you could see her.
That first one, that first one got me. I loved it. Oh,
it was so unsettling.
First jump scare.
My eye. Oh my gosh.
No,
I hate that.
So
I have
I don't know. Oh, well, this is a spoiler episode, so you've already seen it.
Yeah.
Okay, so so he's checking himself in the mirror. He's talking to the producer,
Yeah,
and he
she's
walks
there.
away, and it's not just like her. It's her in the hospital gown, corpse, no hair. A version of her we had not seen yet in the film. Because
Yeah.
the last time we saw her was when she was on air, and like. With a nice dress, but she
Yeah.
has the scarf, and now we're seeing what she probably looked like in her last moments,
Yeah.
and dying in a hospital. As he's walking away from the mirror, she's in it.
Yeah.
I can't wait to see it again because I missed
it's
that.
like my
It was
skin is
good.
like chilled.
I literally chills right now, feeling it,
Yeah,
remembering
and like those moments were like the best parts of the filmmaking of this, like just these little, like I love that when it's not a jump scare that's right in your face, when it's just this like this thing that just adds that atmosphere in the background.
Hill House, I mean, is the perfect
Yeah.
example of that. But like
Same
that,
thing.
if I didn't like, I'm getting chills hearing it. If I like, that's what I love when you don't focus on that. It's just
And
there.
it's
And
almost
then
like
it just
she
comes
was
and goes.
warning
Yeah.
him the whole time, like don't go on with like what you're doing, you know.
Or was the demon the whole time just using her, and it's all a trick?
Yeah, and that's the questions. Like, was he under hypnosis the entire time? Was
once
the
we
cult
get to,
part
once
of
we get
this?
to towards the end, I have a lot
Yes.
of questions. But
Now I actually am thinking,
Yeah.
was it her warning him, or was it the demon because of the hand on the shoulder?
interesting.
So now I'm actually before I was like the demon is using her, but now I'm actually thinking it was her warning him, because that hand on the shoulder was not a scare. It was just like, I'm here.
Yeah.
Like holding him back.
Yes.
And he wasn't listening.
Exactly.
What was
Oh,
the?
that's
I
beautiful.
feel very awful. Forgive me. What was the magician's character's name? The cynic.
The cynic.
The cynic.
Carmichael Hayes.
Carmichael.
Oh, yes,
That's right.
yes.
That's right.
Hayes,
Yeah.
which I loved.
So he was I loved him in this role. You wanted
that's
to just
also
punch him
based
in
off
the
a
face.
real
Yeah.
real
he was
guy who
great.
never like his
Oh
whole
my
thing in the
gosh.
movie is he's gonna give this like what was it $100,000, $500,000.
It was
It was
originally
100,000,
100,000, but he was going to raise it to
right.
$500,000 if they could prove it tonight.
Right.
Yes, like he's a cynic he was a magician turned cynic who was calling out fakes, and he's
Including like famous fake. He was like Ed and Lorraine Warren. Oh, they didn't show up to
Right.
Amityville.
Which-
So I like that. Like,
Yeah.
because not only is it calling out to something that movies have been made out of, but actually
Right.
we're also real life people
Yes.
that have movies about them.
and
I love
as someone who grew up in New England, like is so well known growing up that they were frauds.
Right.
So now that there's an entire cinematic universe around them
I love
being
that.
like,
The
heroes. is
More than
like,
frauds, but that's not something we need to get into
No.
tonight.
Right.
Different day,
Different
different
day.
podcast.
Yikes.
But I loved him. I loved that actor. He was just so like you just wanted to
He was the
punch him
worst.
in the face.
His little
Yeah.
his little looks to
Right.
camera, like
But then him also being like, yo, can I get in this cult? Like, can I get in your rich guy cult?
Yes.
Oh my gosh, I loved
No.
watching him though. Like I loved watching just the way he looked in the background, that he looked at everybody, and no matter like what ante kept being upped, he was just like
yes.
He always had to say
hogwash,
something.
hogwash.
Well, because as much as he was there to be the cynic, he was also there for fame, just like everybody
Right,
else.
exactly.
Yes.
Oh,
Which,
I love
you
that.
know,
Yeah.
Including the psychiatrist was
Absolutely.
there for fame and
Yeah.
for a fling. Which like I was like, oh damn, I don't know, like I don't know if I like that or not.
Yeah.
I don't know if I needed it.
I mean, it just I think it speaks to him as like a flawed character.
Right.
Yeah.
That's what I
Of
thought
like,
too.
and that's another thing that I take away from it. I was like, so was his wife a sacrifice for fame? I think that's the
I think
case.
that's how I took it.
But it also
But maybe a sacrifice he didn't realize he was agreeing to.
and like is the whole thing this like subtext for like his guilt, of like killing his wife to get higher ratings? Jack, he was so driven for these ratings. He was so focused on being the best, on being the top, on getting higher points of Carson during Sweeps
Sweeps.
Week.
Sweet.
Sweet.
On an episode that was
Yeah.
Halloween. It was a
Yes.
Sweet
Yeah.
Halloween episode.
Right.
Yeah.
That they were airing,
Right.
which I also loved all the little retro, like
I-
the little
yeah, I
bat
love
that they
that.
had
I
going
loved
for the
it.
camera.
And the theremin
Yeah.
version
It-
of all the music. I
Yeah.
love that. I feel really bad for the singer who didn't get to go on though.
I know.
Because
She did have like a couple clips.
and then you hear her warming up in the back at one of the commercial breaks. Netflix. I loved that.
And they're just like, you know what? No, we're not gonna do her.
No,
sorry.
Because June comes out, and then her name's Lily, right? The girl's name is Lily, who
the Veruca Salt looking menace.
The Veruca Salt menace. So
dude, she was unsettling.
She was the only survivor of the fire of the cult that the fire burned down.
Which camera do I look into?
Right.
Just like I could talk about her all day.
Her.
I mean, one, it was like the whole. I was like, okay, so the demon is within you the entire time. But my debate was, is she? Like when you watch exorcism movies, it's like they're fighting it or they're going along with it. But I was like, girl is like, yeah, all right, demon, what camera do you want me? I didn't think she was asking them. I thought she was asking the demon. What camera do I look at? Who am I playing off of? Who am I talking to?
Yeah.
Because a lot of times when she was not in like full demon mode, when she like channels his dead wife, because that's what led me to believe of like, is the demon the wife or is the wife actually there? And it's that part of her. But don't I always look beautiful, Jack? And she says it in the voice. I was like, so the wife's not there. It's the demon who's just
I thought the demon was just like full on. Like she was not quite there. Like every time she tried to get the demon out, I almost felt like she was trying to get the girl out. Like it was mostly the demon the whole time.
Yeah, like she was living with that demon in her.
Mr.
Wriggles, because he wriggles in and wriggles
out.
out. But she was very good in that role. She's, it's not easy to always do possessions and do all that, but she had her eyes. Ooh, she communicated so well through her eyes.
So then we get the demon.
Yeah, Abraxas comes out and he's,
very Reagan looking.
Talks to Jack, and then that's when
I love that. I did love the effects. I love the effects. I love the way that they did it, and I love that every time you saw her, it got a little worse.
It did, yeah. And then she starts levitating in the chair, and then the electrical wires go crazy, and then Carmichael's like, "It's all a gimmick. I'll show you." And then he does his.
Oh, which was nasty.
But before that, we got some exposition on it.
Oh, right.
We got she told everybody that Jack and is it June?
June.
Were having an affair.
Yeah.
Jack and June went up the hill
to
each other's brains out.
Each other's brains out.
Which also gave like the whole "fuck me, Jesus, fuck me" reference.
It was giving.
It was giving everything. But I will say what I liked is especially about the makeup and the performance is it felt time period for what special effects would have been like if it was fake, what special effects would have been like if we were watching a movie, because that was very much like The Exorcist.
Very. We go into
Carmichael. That's when he tries to say, "Look, it's all a gimmick," and then he hypnotizes Gus.
Let me show you.
Yeah.
He's like, "Let me show you." So
which was great.
Yeah,
I thought that was such a cool.
That scene.
That was a whole.
I loved that.
I thought that was well done.
Right.
I thought it was disgusting.
It was immersive.
I loved those effects. So he basically hypnotizes Gus because his biggest fear is worms and being like taken over by them. So he has Gus believing that worms are coming out of his body. He's pulling them out of his neck, out of his stomach, and then there's that one giant
big old worm.
Yeah. And I can't tell if the effects were supposed to be cheesy or not.
It went to cheesy. It didn't start cheesy.
But I
it
loved
went to
it.
cheesy.
I loved it.
Yeah.
I loved the cheesy effects.
Because they brought him back. They brought the worm back. And I was like, oh, look at this. It's a puppy again.
I love it that they brought the audience, they brought us into it.
Yeah.
Because we're seeing the worms. And then they're like, wait. You were all hypnotized.
Yeah.
Play back that footage, Ralph. And, then there's no worms.
Right. No. And I thought that was super creepy. I mean, if you've ever been to one of those hypnotism shows, they don't hypnotize the whole audience, they hypnotize people on stage. Right. And he's like, no, I hypnotize the viewers at home. Y'all got suckered.
And
that's how you know they're fake, but then it's literally the little girl. Lily's like, no, then play it back.
Play it back. With the
well, then you believe me, don't you? And I was like, dang, girl, get it. You believe me? Like, I was very, the 1950s. Just like, please.
I want it now, Daddy.
Yeah. Please, I want it now. The playback, Daddy. That's when, and things kept turning, and I really liked with Carmichael's, he was, the flaws in his character where everything, I'm pompous, I'm great. Please get me into your club.
Yes.
I proved this wrong. Oh God, demons are real. I fully pledge my soul and my devotion to you right now.
I loved that so much.
Yes.
Was it on playback that all the went crazy? Was
Yeah.
that?
Well, it was after.
Okay.
Yeah.
When like it's like full-fledged, like, yo, the demon is real.
Then,
that's when
like,
he
the
started.
electrical wires, and then that's when her face, like, she.
Which is, when I talk about CGI
Yeah.
mixed with effects, like, obviously you're not going to be able to 100% do that with effects, but the way it was done, especially
It was
because of electricity,
unnerving.
it looked great.
And it looked very retro.
It was
Yeah.
really
Like,
unnerving.
It reminded me of The Void.
Yes, I was
I see
thinking of
that.
like it was so like Uncanny Valley for sure, but also I kept thinking of Shocker.
Okay.
I
Yeah,
don't
but
know
that's
why.
what I'm saying. Like,
But yeah, it was
like
just
the old school effects
it was
of
very old
electricity.
school, and I think it was
Yes.
supposed to look like that. And it was so unnerving just the way that they did that, and like then literally all hell breaks loose.
Yeah, and let's just
And-
murder
yeah.
everybody.
Like,
which
they
I
murder
loved.
June. They choke her on her necklace, her little like
That she
It
was
was
using.
very deep red.
Yes.
Right.
Yes.
And then Carmichael's
Great
like,
blood.
I'll worship you, and then he just burns away.
He offers him the money, which I was like, all right, it's a little. I would have been fine with it, but like,
Yeah.
whatever. You gotta play it. You gotta bring it
Right.
back. I think that and then like the audience and people like jumping and falling down and
Yeah.
everything that you would do in a studio audience, which like, especially nowadays when something goes wrong in a public place, like we've all felt that, like we've been in that moment where you think like, what am I gonna do?
terrifying,
It felt
yeah.
real.
Right.
Where if I was in that audience, I would be
terrified.
jumping.
Yes.
I would be doing anything to get the hell out of there.
I was very sad to see Gus.
Well, and I actually
R.I.P.
liked that he was
Gus.
first to go
Yeah.
because they were like, if hell breaks loose, you have my permission to leave.
Right.
But he didn't get the
And
chance
he
because he was
did
first.
it.
Yeah, because he was so skittish.
Gus.
Yeah.
Oh,
But they
poor
were
Gus.
the way that they did those final chaotic moments, because I remember in the film like just thinking like, okay, but it's gonna happen. Something's crazy's gonna happen. And then when the crazy happened, I was like, oh god, we're getting a
It
little
almost
crazy.
reminded me of like the acceleration that like Hereditary went, like how it's such a slow burn, things happen, but it's very slow, very
Yeah.
spooky, and then all at once, all hell breaks
All at
loose
once,
the
someone's
end.
neck gets slit.
Right.
Like
And
we're
then-
going.
And then all of a sudden, like Gus is like, "Okay, welcome Jack Delroy," and he's like, "What the what?" And for a brief moment, I thought it was like, please tell me this is not it's all in his head. Please tell me the movie was
But
not all in
I
his
still
head.
don't know if it wasn't.
Well, that's the thing. It gets very artsy, which I like. It's fine. But my confusion was, okay, because then he goes through this, like, it's a very trippy, like,
Yeah,
the way that
they go
do
through
it, very,
moments
yeah.
that we've seen previously
Right.
in the film that were integral to him in some way.
Yes.
His first comedic sketch that almost got him as high as Carson, having his wife on one last time before she passed
Yes.
away, and so we're reliving these moments with him, and he's obviously like
He's
confused
very,
at why
like,
he's
right.
there, and
And then you see her on her deathbed, and she's like, "Don't you get it? Like, you had to make a sacrifice. Didn't you want you to have the highest rate?"
And they tied the
like,
cult,
right?
the Abraxas cult with the Woods cult,
Yes.
the Owl cult, everything tied together, which makes you think of like, okay, so these cults must be, if they are tied together,
Yeah.
and this whole thing, not planned by Jack, not planned by Lily,
Yeah.
but as a whole, it all is a plan to get this demon into the airwaves.
yeah.
And that's what made me think is that the Woods and everybody all had the same end goal, and it
Right.
worked. And I especially love at the very end when you're saying in its end of transmission,
Yep,
but it's
yep.
swapping to.
And so it is.
and so it is.
Because that's what you say to close rituals
yeah.
off. And I love
That was so
That was my
creepy.
favorite part of the whole movie.
Yeah, and
But
so,
my confusion was really quick was that, was that supposed to imply that he knew all along what he was doing? He sacrificed his wife for it? Or did
No,
he
I
just
don't think
learn
so.
that he's like, oh, I needed to make a sacrifice. This was
I think that maybe that was his fear. Because when he's sitting there and she says it, he didn't have a look of like shock of like, oh my God, what had I done? I think it had a more of like, I didn't mean to.
That's what I thought. I thought like that when they said
it's like a monkey's paw.
Right.
Yes.
He didn't quite realize
like,
that was the
He
Like,
knew he was going to make a
care-
sacrifice, but he didn't think it would be that.
Be
right.
careful what you wish for.
Exactly. Yeah.
But also, as I said, maybe it's all this subtext for his guilt of losing his wife. And
Yeah.
because but it's open for interpretation, and I love
like
that.
I really like that.
And yeah, the way that they
Yeah.
ended it, and the way that because it's found footage, it's got to end at some point. I
Right.
thought that they did a really good job.
I loved that ending.
And the way that we find it and the way that we're seeing it,
Right.
it was well explained. It didn't take me out of it to see it that way.
You're about to be very famous, Jack.
Yeah.
Oh, I love that.
And
I love it. Like, yeah, and then he wakes up out of that like psychedelic trip, and then like when because she said, "Do it, Jack, do it," and he had that sacrificial dagger, and it's actually in Lily. Like it shows that he would actually.
Like, so he
kill
just
Lily.
killed everybody.
And so
Yeah.
then he snaps out of it, and everyone's dead. And I love how he's like, what does he say? He tries to say like the words to like get out of the trance or something.
Yeah. Oh, that was it.
I love that.
Because he's like, this
yeah.
isn't real. This isn't real. It's
Whatever,
this,
yeah,
click your heels to go home type of thing.
Yeah, I
It's
forget
not
what the
gonna
words were,
happen.
and he says like 3 times. He's like, it's this
As
is
they're like
hypnosis. It's
pulling
hypnosis,
away,
yeah.
just like the
Right.
doll, like it was just like in the studio that they be pulling away the
Yeah.
crane, and I was like,
But
oh, I
man,
loved it.
That end of transmission though.
Yeah.
That so it is done. Ooh.
I did want more
that
out
got
of the
me.
skeleton dude in the audience, though. I kept waiting.
Oh, the
for
skeleton
something.
dude!
I was like, come on, man, do something.
The
He's not
skeleton-
talking. I was like, are you the demon the whole time?
That's what I
Who
thought,
is that
too. I was
actor?
like,
Who did it? Great part. I hope that guy had a ton of fun. I wish he had more screen
The
time. I wanted
skeleton
something out of
actor.
skeleton.
I love
Oh
Dude.
yeah, for the
Dude.
Halloween parade
Yeah.
that they
Yeah.
cut to stay on.
But
Oh,
the
my gosh.
Halloween parade did get
Yeah.
to kind of happen with the cult that they were going to be
Yeah.
intermingled. And I was like, oh, good, you got to show off your
You got
costume.
to
Good for
walk
you.
a little. You got to prance.
We
a
all
little
wanna
bit.
show off.
We wanted to see.
But I mean, all in all,
Yeah.
this is 100% something that saw in theaters and I'm going to watch again, which
Yeah.
I will say, a lot of horror movies, I have seen a ton, but how many do I go back and watch again?
right, like actively want to just go back to rewatch.
Like, I can't wait to go rewatch it.
I'm really
gonna
excited
do
to see
it.
this on a TV. And
Yeah.
and I want to see all the wife and in the reflection.
Yeah,
Like,
yeah,
I
she's,
can't wait to
what we
she's
know.
there several
She's-
times.
That's
Yeah.
so cool.
I want to see how many things I missed.
Yeah.
And I do think that as far as the production goes, for a new type of found footage, and not saying it's like 100% new, but it is
No,
different.
ma'am.
It's different.
I know
and
it's
really
not new.
respect
We're
When-
gonna see more.
When
Yeah.
I show you more of these,
I'm
you're gonna be
excited.
like, oh.
Thanks for joining us tonight. Be sure to like and subscribe, all those social media things, so you continue to hang out with us every week. And speaking of, since we had such a good time, we want to invite you to our slumber party. We are going to continue this month's theme. So grab your sleeping bag, bring some snacks, and we are going to watch a movie that, without its creation, Late Night with the Devil would not be what it is. See if you can guess before next week. Leave in the comments if you think you know what it is. And until next week, whatever you do,
Don't fall asleep.